Hi, Virgo. Welcome to Pandora Astrology's monthly horoscope for August of 2022. We are the astrologers of Pandora Astrology. I'm Jamie Kale Miller. I'm in Berkeley, California.
I'm Julia Mikos in San Francisco, California.
Virgo, if this is your sun sign, then your birthday is coming up fast. You're already in your yearly mop-up period, which is the 30 days before your birthday. So you're already starting to feel your old year passing away and your new year surging forward. Getting a birthday reading now positions you powerfully to start your personal new year. You'll find a link for that in the text that comes with this video. Well, I want to just mention briefly that we are in a relationship retrospection period because Juno here is retrograde. She's the asteroid goddess to do with committed relationship. She's going to be retrograde until October. We did make a video about this in July, so you could find it in our July news playlist on our YouTube channel, Pandora Astrology. But I just want to say super briefly that while Juno is retrograde in Pisces, we're going to all be undergoing a spiritual reflection period, asking ourselves, is this person in my life, was this meant to be? And if so, is it living into its metaphysical possibilities? And is it supported by my spiritual value system? So I would strongly recommend that you check that out. We'll say more about it also in October when Juno goes direct. The other thing I want to mention just quickly is that Uranus goes retrograde, and here he is, the little guy. Uranus goes retrograde around the 24th. Boom. There he is, retrograde with a little RX red symbol here. Uranus brings innovation and change. Uranus can bring you into connection with your tribe, or even having you feeling alienated from your tribe, like a misfit. And when Uranus goes retrograde, it can fling you into a period of retrospection about your sense of belonging. Uranus is traveling through your 9th house, so this might land for you in your beliefs, possibly in your religious community. So there's a pretty interesting thought. When it goes retrograde around the 24th, 25th, you may find that some interesting shifts are going on inside you and will have implications over the next several months. Hey, Julia, what is up with Mercury, Venus, and Mars for the Virgos of the world?
Well, hey there, Virgo. Mercury, your ruling planet, the planet that represents mind, the planet that represents communication, spends the first few days of the month in your 12th house of isolation, where it spent most of last month. And if you want to get a refresher on what that was like, you can totally check out our last month's video. But during that cycle, you were probably very inclined to keep your thoughts and ideas to yourself because the 12th is such a hidden house. Then around the 3rd and 4th, depending on where you live in the world, which hemisphere or time zone you're in, Mercury enters your 1st house. So at this shift that happens earlier in the month, you're going to be a lot more, let's say, a lot more sort of open and direct with your communication than you probably have been last month. Now, Mercury in the 1st house is a very great time to impress other people using your mind, using your words. The 1st house is the house of self. So you and your words and your thinking, you really identify with them strongly. It could be a good time for a school project where you get up and present in front of the class. It could be a good time for a job interview, even a first date where you really want to impress somebody else with your language and mind, wouldn't be so bad about that. Then Venus, the planet of art and beauty, starts the month in your 11th house. Now, Venus in the 11th house is the house that represents your friends. It represents any groups you're a part of. It's also the house of hopes, wishes, and dreams, those long-term goals that take some time to realize. So with Venus in the 11th house, you might get a little bit of luck in helping you get a bit closer to a goal or a wish or a dream that you have, or at least you'll find a lot more pleasure pursuing it. Venus in the 11th is a wonderful time for getting along well with your friends. It could be a super social time period for the first 11 days this month while it's in your 11th. Now, after August 11th, Venus goes into your 12th house. This is a hidden house in the zodiac. It's a house that represents places of isolation. It also has a very charitable, very altruistic, very spiritual quality to it. So with Venus in the 12th house, this might be a time, if you are in a relationship, where you kind of want to be a little bit more isolated with your partner, not want to be out in the world, out hanging out with friends or going out to clubs or festivals, but a little bit more on the isolated time. You might find that you're of service to your partner in some way, or they're of service to you. This is one of the service-oriented houses. So if your partner's going through a rough time, you could be totally there to help them. Or if you're having some kind of personal crisis, your partner is right there to help you, which is a beautiful thing. Then Mars, the planet of action and activity, starts the month in your 9th house. This is a travel house. This is a house of adventure, education, legal affairs, philosophy. It's a house that rules all the things that expand you. So Mars in the 9th house does not like to stay put. Mars wants to go out and have some adventures, have some new experiences, and hopefully something like that might be available to you at this time, because if you are sort of bogged down by work and responsibilities, this can be pretty stir crazy. But there are other ways to expand yourself, even though Mars is very physical and might want to go out there for a hike or might want to go travel. This could be a really, really good time to learn something new, feel very sort of driven at expanding yourself in some way. And if you are involved in any kind of legal stuff or you're in school, you might not be seeing eye to eye with people. It could be a little bit of a frustrating time period for both of those things. But by August 20th, Mars is going to go into your 10th house. This is a career house. It's a house that has a lot to do with your public reputation. It's a very public house. So with Mars in the 10th, this is a time where you could feel very driven at your career. You can get a lot of work done. But it is also a time where you might brush up against the authority figures in your life. If you have basically anyone telling you what to do, whether it's still your parents, whether it's a boss, whether it's a teacher at school, or even a cop pulling you over and giving you a ticket, this is definitely a time where you might be brushing up against authority figures, but a really good time to get a lot of work done. Because Mars is a little bit of a feisty planet, it can represent our anger. The 10th house is the house of your reputation. You might be very annoyed about something that goes on with your reputation in some way. If someone says something about you, is spreading some kind of rumor or gossip, it could really draw your ire during that cycle.
And speaking of things like that, like drawing your ire and dealing with authority, we have the first of this month's 2 moons, which is a full moon in Aquarius right here in the 6th house. And Aquarius all by itself tends to bring something of a rebellious feel. And you've been having Saturn traveling along through your 6th house probably for at least a year already, possibly making you feel like you really are under pressure at work. Like you've got to show up, you've got to put on the big kid pants, you've got to hunker down and really work. But meanwhile, remember I spoke of that Uranus up here in the 9th house. So some of your beliefs may be changing, and they might even disrupt the discipline that you need to show at work, especially under this full moon. So watch out for that during this moon. You might be caught in the crossfire between authority versus innovation. The next thing I want to tell you about is the sun changing signs. Here it is traveling along and finishing out Leo, and then it moves into Virgo. I'm really fond of saying that you should shine the sunlight of your high quality attention in whatever area the sun is passing through. And when it enters into the 1st house, well, that's the sign of Virgo, which means yourself. It's time for some attention on you. It's time for some self-cultivation. Most certainly, it's time for a solar return birthday reading so that you can enter into your new year in the best possible way and really be the driver of it rather than being along for the ride. But other than that, let other people notice you. Let yourself shine, Virgo. Maybe you're a little too humble sometimes. Attention is a good thing. So then as the sun continues along through the first house, you have 30 days of paying attention to yourself and letting others do the same. And then we come to the new moon in Virgo right here, which is on the 27th. Yes. And this one we're calling perfectionism with scattered actions. And it really draws on some of the stuff that Julia was saying about that Mars in the 10th house and how feisty it can be, especially in the realm of career. And so there can be some conflict when Mars is involved with a moon like this, and you might find yourself butting heads with the higher ups in your place of work. But another factor to bear in mind is that Mars, in traveling through Gemini, can get really scattered. And so if you're indulging your perfectionistic, ways and ideals, as you perhaps so love to do, Virgo, and then you might find that this Mars under this particular new moon is very distracting and pulls you in way too many directions, and that you're paying attention to things that are just way too small to matter, especially at work. So watch out for that. Good thing that moons have a tendency to have a rather fleeting influence, unless they're eclipses, and no eclipses this month. Well, that's what we have for you today, Virgo. You can always find your horoscope on our website in the horoscope tab. You can find out more about this month's moons on the monthly forecast tab. And if you did want that birthday reading, you can find us in the readings tab. And until next time, we'll see you around the cosmos. Bye.
Bye-bye.